This project will outline steps to complete Excel Challenge Yourself Project 9.3. So in this project, we actually will be covering skills related to consolidating data, importing data. We'll create a drop-down list. We'll add an input message and error alert to data validation. We'll add data validation. We'll work with comments, we'll insert hyperlinks, and then we'll also protect a worksheet and workbook from changes. So one thing I do want to mention is when I work through this project at home, my tools, my tabs, my home tab, data tab, formula tab, the view was a little different from home than it actually is from my work computer. So keep in mind that we still will be using the same tools. You may have to find a different way to access those tools. So remember, when I'm working through this, if it does not look the same on your from the Excel view you have at home, you can always go to this little light bulb and type in, for example, data validation, and it will kind of walk you through how to get there from your from the the version you have at home. So to get started, let me clear out of this workbook, and I am pulling over my SimNet. So first of all, you need to download the resource file, and this is a zip file, so you want to go ahead when you get this pop-up window and you want to go ahead and just save that file. And then you also want to download your start file. And I'm just going to open that file because we want to go ahead and work on it. And then before I actually get started on the project, I am going to unzip the file, the resource file that we downloaded. So mine by default goes to my downloads, and here I have that resource file. So I'm going to click on it and double click it. So I get this pop-up that gives me the option to extract. So I want to extract those files, and I'm just going to put them on my desktop. So wherever you typically save your files, you should have a list of your File Explorer options. You could put it on your OneDrive. Just for this purpose, I'm just going to extract it to my desktop. And I have already done this, so it's just asking me, do I want to overwrite those files, which is fine. So now I just can close this window. I can close my File Explorer, and I'm ready to start on this project. So I want to go ahead and click Enable Editing, and then you should go ahead and save this. So I'm going to File, Save As. Again, I'm just going to save it to my desktop. And you can save it to wherever you normally save your files, and I have so many. And if you got the copy of, because I've downloaded this a couple of times, I just want to make sure I remove that, and then I can just click Save. Okay, so we're going to jump in on step 3. So the first thing it wants us to do is consolidate to create a summary of real estate sales for all property types. So what we're doing to consolidate is we're taking the data from the condo, townhouse, and single family, and we want to get the average of all of those home types. So we have the list of home types here. So we want that data consolidated in cell B3 through C15. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that range. And then I'm going to navigate to my consolidate. So I know that to consolidate data, I need to go to the data tab, and then I want to find data tools and consolidate. So again, if your view is different and you're not having luck finding it, search for it. So I'll click on consolidate, and the first thing it gives me, and regardless of how you get to consolidate, this should look the same. So in consolidate, the first thing we want to do is change that from sum to average, because we want the average of the condo, the townhouse, and the single family type homes. And now it wants to know what our reference is. So we have to tell it where to pull or where to consolidate that information. So the first worksheet we want to consolidate information from is the condo. And we want to consolidate the data from cells B2 to C14. So I'm going to click my condo tab, and I'm just going to select the cells B2 to C14. And I want to add that as one of my references. The next one is the townhouse worksheet. So I'll click on townhouse, same reference area. If it's not, we could just reselect, but since it's the same, I just want to add that. And then the next one is single family. And still, again, it's the same reference area, so I don't have to change that, and I just want to add. So in the all references, you should have your condo worksheet and cell B2 to C14, single family B2 to C14, and townhouse B2 to C14. And one thing it wants us to do is include links to data source. So we need to check the radio button for create links, and then we can click OK. And that create links allowed us, if we want to expand on each property type or house type, we can, when we click expand, we see that the data is that we're pulling is the first one is, you know, if we click on it, it tells us it's condo in cell B2. The next one is single family, cell B2, and the last one is townhouse. So it's taken these three numbers, 14, 14, and 5, and here we're getting the average. So the average is 11, and the same thing with sale price. You know, if we click on the first one, it tells us this is condo C2, single family C2, townhouse C2, and then this is the average of those three together. So I'm going to contract those back up. All right, so that's all we wanted to do for step 3 through 5. So now we want to move on to step 6. So step 6 tells us in the select sales worksheet, so we want to move to the select sales, we want to add data validation to restrict values in the house type columns. So it tells us that cells B2 to B139, sorry, let me pause just a second. Okay, so I was skipping ahead. We completed the steps 2 through 3, and now we want to jump to step 4. This is where we'll actually download the resources, and I am notorious for skipping steps, so what we want to do is we want to advance to the select sales data or to the select sales worksheet, and now we're going to download those resources that we or we're going to import the resources that we downloaded. So we want to be on we want to import the select sales data file that we imported or that we downloaded. So we want to click in cell A1 to do this. And again, if we are importing, we want to be on the data tab, and then we want to get to this get external data. And we know we want to get it from a text file because we have that little hint in here. So we want to click on from text file, and then we can just navigate. So remember, I saved mine to my desktop. So now I want to find those challenge yourself resources, select data sales, and now I'm going to click import. And I get this text import wizard pop up. And really, there's not anything here we want to change. So I'm just going to go through next, next, and finish. And it's asking me, do I want to put the data in an existing worksheet? And we do. We want to use cell A1, and so there's nothing here we want to change. So we go ahead and click OK. So step 5 tells us we want to remove the data connection when the import is complete. So to remove that data connection, I'm still in my data tab, and I have a connections group, and I want to click on connections. And it's telling me that the only connection I have in this workbook is to the select sales data. And the reason we want to remove this is if I make changes to this select sales data text file, then it will automatically update to my Excel worksheet. So you may want that, but you may not. So when we remove that connection, there's no chance if I make changes to this text file that it will make changes automatically to my my Excel spreadsheet. So we just want to remove that. There's maybe instances where you do not, and for all intents and purposes, for this one, we do want to. Okay, so once we remove the data connection, let's see, we want to move on to step 6. And so it wants us, still working on the select sales worksheet, we want to add data validation to restrict values in the house type columns. So we want to do that data validation on cell B2 to B39. So I'm going to select that range, B2 to B139. And again, I'm still using my data tab, and I want to go to the data tools group, and I want to choose data validation. And if we click on the drop down list, we have the option for 3 different tools, but we want to choose data validation. And it wants us to use the values in the cell range named property types. So the first thing, it did tell us it wants us to use a list. So we want to change that value to list, and we want to identify the source. So the source, to get the source, it tells us that we have a named range. So if we go to formulas and we go to defined names, we have the option to any group or any defined name that we have in our workbook, we can choose that here. So it tells us it wants us to use the property types defined name range. So I'm going to click property types, and so that's pulling that source property types here. And then it wants us to make sure that we choose in cell drop down, and it doesn't really say anything about ignore blank. So I'm not going to change that. By default, it is selected. So we can just click OK. All right. And one thing I want to mention, when I did this at home, by default, when I imported this, I had a theme. So I had kind of a purple header row, and so when I'm doing it at work, it's plain. Either way, it is fine. It will not take away credit if your layout looks a little different than this. So if there's a little bit of formatting in your layout, don't worry about that. Okay, so then after we've done that, we want to add the following input message to cells B2 to B139. So you should still have those selected. If not, select those again. And then we want to go back to that data tab, and we want to go to our data validation, and we probably could have done this all at once, but I'll kind of move you back and forth, and that's fine. So we're just going right back into data validation. So we already see our list, our property types. Now we want to put an input message in there. So we want to click on input message, and we want to type in the input message to select a property, and just make sure you're spelling correctly, and that you're putting in all punctuation, capitalization as listed in the instructions, and then period. So select a property type from the list. And then before we close out of here, before we click OK, it wants us to add the following error alert. So you should still have the range selected, and we want to go to error alert. And here we want to put not a valid property type. So our error message will be not a VA valid, and I'm on my wrong keys on my keyboard, so not a valid property type, period. Not a valid property type, period. And then we just want to click OK. So notice if we click on any cell, it gives us the option for a drop-down list, and we have these 4 options: condo, townhouse, single family, multi-unit, and it doesn't matter which one we click on, we have that. And then it wants us to apply data validation circles to any values that violate the data rules. So again, we want to select that range to do our data validation rule. And so I have the range circled, and then I want to come back over to data validation. And this time I want to circle invalid data. And notice, wow, I have a lot of red circles. So anything that doesn't fall under this category, condo, townhouse, single family, multi-unit, it's going to circle that data. Now, if we were typing this, we would get that error alert because we've created the rules. But because this data was already in here, we imported it and then we created the rules. That data, you know, it doesn't remove it, it just lets us know that we already have errors in here. Okay, so now we want to, let me just make sure I didn't skip a step. We want to apply data validation circles that violate the rules. So anything that's not within the rules that we set should be, it should have been circled when we applied the rule. And then we want to add a comment to cell B1 in the select cells worksheet that reads, so I'm in cell B1, that we need to fix this data. So when we first applied that rule, we had all those circles. So now we want to remind ourselves to fix this data. So to do that, we want to go to our review tab and we want to add a comment. And so it just tells me that I'm the one adding the comment, and we just want to type in, we need to fix this data. And again, this will look different if you're doing this from your downloaded student version at home. All right, so step 10, we want to add a hyperlink from cell B1 to the select cells worksheet to link to the named range. So we're in cell B1, and we want to add that hyperlink. So we want to go to the Insert tab, and we want to go to the Links group and Hyperlink. And again, if this doesn't look like yours, search for it or go to Help. And we want to hyperlink to a place in our document. So we want to click Place in Document, and it wants us to do to the named range. So remember, we have defined names, and we want to do that property types, and we want to click OK. And it wants us to test this. So it should look like you have a hyperlink here now, and it wants you to test it. So when you click on it, it should take you to the property types worksheet, and it should take you to that list: condo, townhouse, single family, multi-unit. Okay, so let's see. Now the last thing we want to do is apply worksheet protection to the select cells worksheet. So we want to go back to the select cells worksheet, and I always just select the whole thing by clicking this little box in the upper left corner. And we want to go to, let's see, sometimes I have to think about it. View. So it's on the Review tab, and we want to protect, we want to choose, we want to protect the worksheet. So we're only protecting this worksheet. So let me make sure I have it selected, and I want to protect sheet. And then it gives us some options. It does not tell us to put in a password, so we do not want to add a password. It does say to the user should only be able to select cells, not edit. So select locked cells, and so by default mine was select locked cells. The radio button was checked, and select unlocked cells. I'm not changing anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. And now if you notice, if you click in the worksheet and you try to type, you're going to get that pop-up that says this is a protected workbook. So that's it for this project. Now you can save it and submit it. Hopefully you'll get 100%. If you run into any issues, send me an email, or you can certainly give me a call. I'll be in and out of my office, you know, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 3 usually. And so good luck.